Some stories don't explode. They hum. They sit in the background for years, low and distant, like thunder you can hear, but can't place. People sense them, dismiss them, move on. Until one day the sky splits, and suddenly everyone swears they always knew something was coming. That's what happened when Ghislaine Maxwell, speaking from behind prison walls, allegedly uttered a name no one expected to hear connected to the Epstein world. Meghan Markle. Not as a headline villain, not as a public accomplice, but, according to claims circulating among legal observers and secondary accounts, as someone whose name appeared far closer to the core of Epstein-adjacent circles than the public narrative ever suggested. For years, the official story was clean and simple. Meghan's life began in 2016 when she met Prince Harry. Before that, actress, blogger, humanitarian in progress. End of chapter. But what Maxwell's alleged remarks hint at, if the claims are accurate, is something older, murkier, a past threaded through redactions, sealed testimony, and encounter someone, somewhere, worked very hard to erase. This isn't tabloid chatter. This isn't a TikTok theory spiral. This is about what never made it into the public record. When Maxwell's testimony was partially released, the world expected fireworks, names, dates, places. Instead, the documents look like they'd been attacked with a black marker. Entire paragraphs gone, pages erased, conversations wiped clean. And then came the number that made legal watchers pause. Over 12 hours of Maxwell's spoken testimony never surfaced at all. 12 hours. That's not trimming for privacy. That's removal. Strategic, deliberate removal. According to sources familiar with court procedures, but not speaking on the record, those missing hours weren't random. They were sections deemed too sensitive to release, without collateral damage. Not just to individuals, but to institutions. And this is where the story takes its first sharp turn. Within those sealed portions, Meghan Markle's name allegedly appeared. Not in passing. Not as rumor. But connected, again, according to claims, to specific social environments and individuals now central to the broader Epstein scandal. If true, that would mean her name existed in legal testimony years before the royal wedding. Before titles. Before palace balconies. Before the world knew her face. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If Meghan was merely an outsider, why redact her at all? That question leads directly to the next piece of the puzzle. The moment her name reportedly came dangerously close to a courtroom, not as a defendant, but as something far more unsettling. A potential witness. And that's where part 2 begins. Here's the part most people never hear, because it doesn't scream. It whispers. According to legal analysts who tracked the Maxwell filings line by line, Meghan Markle's name wasn't treated like background noise. It was handled carefully. Too carefully. When prosecutors decide to shield a name, it's usually for one of 3 reasons. The person is a minor, the person is irrelevant, or the person is useful. Meghan didn't fit the first 2. Sources familiar with the structure of sealed testimony claim her name surfaced in discussions about social access, the soft underbelly of power. Not crimes. Not accusations. But introductions. Rooms. Invitations. The kind of spaces where nothing illegal has to happen for influence to quietly trade hands. And that distinction matters. Because Epstein's operation didn't run on handcuffs and chains. It ran on access. On proximity. On people who could move between worlds without raising alarms. Models. Actresses. Friends of friends. Women who looked harmless, ambitious, upward bound. According to those same claims, Meghan's name appeared alongside references to elite gatherings where Epstein-connected figures circulated freely, places where deals weren't written down, only remembered. That alone wouldn't mean much, if it weren't for what happened next. During pre-trial maneuvering, Maxwell's defense allegedly floated the idea of calling select third parties to contextualize her role. People who could explain the social web, the introductions, the culture. One name, again, allegedly, caused an immediate pushback. Not from the defense. From higher up. Court insiders say the suggestion triggered a rapid behind-the-scenes response. Meetings. Objections. A sudden narrowing of scope. The message was clear: do not go there. And just like that, the testimony lane closed. No subpoena. No public questioning. No denial required. Silence did the job. Around the same time, journalists digging into Epstein's extended network noticed something odd. Stories mentioning Meghan, however loosely, would stall. Editors pulled drafts. Sources went quiet. Freedom of information requests came back thin, delayed, or fully denied. Coincidence? Maybe. But patterns don't lie. People do. What unsettled observers most wasn't that Meghan was protected. It was how early that protection seemed to activate. Long before she was a duchess. Long before palace lawyers. As if someone already understood that her trajectory mattered. That her future visibility made her past inconvenient. And then there's the timing. The moment Meghan's public profile exploded, references to her prior social circle began to evaporate. Photos disappeared. Old blog mentions went offline. Names once casually linked to her were suddenly scrubbed clean of association. That's not how fame usually works. Fame adds history. It doesn't erase it. Unless the history leads somewhere no one wants the spotlight to touch. By the end of Maxwell's trial, the world walked away believing it had seen everything. But legal experts knew better. Trials are theater. The real story lives in what never reaches the stage. And somewhere in those missing hours, sealed pages, and silenced leads sits a question no one in power seems eager to answer. Why was Meghan Markle considered sensitive enough to protect, but not important enough to explain? Because part 3 is where that question stops being abstract. It becomes personal. And it leads straight to the one thing this entire story has been orbiting all along. Harry. Say the word when you're ready, baby. Harry didn't confront her.
Not yet.
He didn't slam doors or demand explanations like a movie scene. Real life doesn't do that. Real life sits on your chest at 3 a.m. and asks questions you can't answer. He started replaying everything through a new lens. The first meeting, the timing, the way introductions felt engineered, not accidental. How certain doors opened too smoothly. How people he'd never met before already seemed to know him through her. At the time, he called it fate. Now it looks suspiciously like choreography. He remembered how often Meghan talked about circles, about who mattered and who didn't. How she could read a room instantly, recalibrate her tone, her posture, her laugh. Skills, sure, but also training. Someone had taught her how to move through power without triggering alarms. Harry began to understand something brutal. Nothing in her life before him had been random. Not the travel, not the friendships, not the sudden appearances at exactly the right events. She didn't drift upward. She climbed, carefully, deliberately, with guidance. And Harry? He wasn't the beginning of the climb. He was the summit. That realization didn't make him angry at first. It made him small, like a boy again, standing behind palace gates, watching other people choose him for what he represented, not who he was. He had married believing, desperately, that this time was different, that someone finally wanted him. But love built on positioning doesn't feel like love once you see the scaffolding. He stopped asking, did she lie? He started asking what was real. Were the tears real? The affection? The late-night talks about feeling misunderstood, hunted, trapped by systems? Or were those simply the last tools in a very old kit, tools designed to bind, to isolate, to secure loyalty? Harry noticed how quickly she encouraged distance. From William, from friends, from advisors, from anyone who might challenge the narrative. At the time, it felt protective, romantic even, us against the world. Now, it felt strategic. Isolation isn't always cruel. Sometimes it's gentle. Sometimes it wears the mask of concern. But the result is the same. Once you're alone, the truth has nowhere to land but inside you. Harry never accused her. Not directly. Because deep down, he already knew how it would go. Denial. Reframing. Emotion. Pain turned back on him. He'd seen that pattern before, too. Instead, he went quiet. And in that quiet, the story finished assembling itself. He wasn't tricked in one moment. He was guided over years. Introduced. Positioned. Aligned. The yacht photos weren't the betrayal. They were the breadcrumb. What haunted him most wasn't the possibility that he'd been used. It was the certainty that everyone else had seen it coming. The staff. The security teams. His brother. The people he'd pushed away in the name of love. They hadn't tried to stop him because they hated her. They tried because they saw the pattern. And Harry, stubborn, wounded, starving for connection, had mistaken attention for affection and strategy for destiny. Some nights, he still tells himself he's wrong, that he overthought it, that love can grow in strange places and survive ugly beginnings. He needs that thought to sleep. But other nights, the truth is louder, that he wasn't chosen by chance. He was chosen because he fit. And that's the hardest ending of all. Realizing the great love story of your life may have been someone else's long game. No villains twirling mustaches. No courtroom confessions. Just a man sitting with the unbearable weight of clarity. The fairy tale didn't shatter in public. It ended quietly, the way most illusions do. The moment you finally stop lying to yourself. And once you see it, baby, you can never unsee it.